Hello and welcome to episode 43 of Enter the Mind podcast. Today we're going to be talking about what is psychological health, but I have an interesting way of approaching this. So I'm going to go ahead and read a quote and then we'll launch into it. Sound good, Kyra?
Yep.
Cool. So the quote is from an interview with Will Smith and it's about acting. And so in the first part of this quote, he says, bad actors try to show the audience what they're thinking and feeling, but great actors internalize. And you just learn how to take yourself to that emotional space that the character is in. You learn how to relate. So basically he's saying, bad actors try to show, they try to put on a display, but great actors will just bring themselves to that emotional space and their behaviors will kind of just come out naturally. And then the second part is, he says, you realize that Will Smith or Jim Carrey is a character, just like the character is a character. It's these made up ideas that you say you are. What you realize is that what you think is you, that's so permanent, your political beliefs, who you love, how you react when people disrespect you. You think all of those things are you. When you break that perception and go so far into the character that you're playing on screen, and then it's time to come out of that character, you can't find your old beliefs. They're gone. You realize that your ego, your personality, is a construct, just like the character is a construct. I don't do method acting anymore because you absolutely can totally, completely, and thoroughly lose everything that you think is you. And so that's pretty powerful, right? Before I ask another question about that, any immediate reactions?
No, I just love it.
And of course, he talked about the character of the Joker, which everybody knows, it just was a very intense role for Heath Ledger to play. And, and he couldn't get himself out of that role. So, and I guess that's what method acting is. But anyways, so how this relates to psychological health, right? I originally wanted to have today's episode be us talking about, what are the different elements of psychological health? And then I realized, well, a much better question is this. If you were in an acting class and the teacher said, okay, your next assignment is to play a person who is very psychologically healthy, how would you act differently than how you act now? Or even if the teacher said, your next assignment is to play the role of you, except a more psychologically healthy version of you, you would know how to play that role. And so the knowledge is deep in there already. There's no point in us kind of saying, all right, here's psychological health, A, B, C, D, now go do these things. I think it's better to access that inside. It's got to be there internally already. And so do you think people, well, I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think that people, what are some things do you think people would do differently if they were to use that question and approach their day from that question?
I think that it would definitely be a little bit uncomfortable at first because it's like you'd be going around and people who really know you, they're like, what are you doing? Like, what's up with you today? But then of course, you know, if your friends are really your friends, you could just tell them, oh, you know, I'm just trying a new approach to life, and you know, it feels really aligned with me and stuff. And you know, they would be like, okay, you know. And I feel like before we hopped on the podcast today, we were kind of talking about how, you know, everybody knows already. Like if you were told to step up and be like, you know, a mentally healthy person, you'd be like, oh, okay, no fucking problem. Like I got this, right? But okay, well, what's wrong with being mentally healthy in everyday life? Why? So, you know, I think that this is cool for all the listeners, because now you all can start to practice, you know, what it is to be mentally healthy, and what it is to allow the thoughts into your brain and the actions into your brain that are mentally healthy.
Yeah, totally. And some things are starting to come to mind already, like maybe not taking things personally,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, there's got to be some sort of, you also don't want to be walked over, but I think that like 90% of the time when people attack you, it's from their own small egos, and it's like a defense on their end versus like some sort of malicious like bullying attack on you. So I think maybe 90% of it should just be ignored. What do you think?
I feel like if somebody is personally attacking you and legit, like it's, you know, like legit, like somebody straight up attacking you, you know, which is pretty rare, you know. But like if you are a mentally healthy person, you're not going to go attacking somebody for something that isn't really an attack, you know. So it's like if you're on stage with somebody and, you know, somebody makes a joke, and it's like Kyra, right? Kyra is like the smartest genius in the world and the dumbest person at the same time. Fucking idiot, right? I would probably start laughing, because in some points it's true. I'm a willy-nilly, you know, person, but I'm also extremely, you know, smart. So I can laugh at that. You know, I'm enough of mentally healthy to know that this person is not coming at me. They're just stating something about me. And if I know it as well, then why isn't it okay for them to say it? The only reason that it wouldn't be okay for them to say it and I were to snap back would be if I were not mentally healthy. You know, now I can understand if, you know, we're all hanging out and my friend is like, Kyra, you're extremely embarrassing in front of other people. All you talk about is mental health, and you crack jokes, and honestly, it's quite frankly, it's really fucking embarrassing. You know, at that point, I'd be like, I don't really think it's embarrassing, and I'm sorry that you do, you know, but still I wouldn't snap, because it's not in the mentally healthy, right? So that wouldn't get me to snap, because I'm still mentally healthy enough to be like, I'm really not, you know, take care of that, right? But then, you know, say somebody comes up and I'm at the club and this girl wants to start a fight, and she's like, you look like an ugly ass hoe and I saw you flirting with my man, right? At that point, you know, I probably would still be like, all right, have an awesome night. I'm going to go over here. Wasn't flirting with your man. And if she proceeded, you know, like kind of gave me a shove, you know, I'd probably turn around and be like, back the fuck up, you know, like back up, bitch. Like, I don't want your man, you know. But either way, within all of those scenarios, you know, the mentally healthy can still control themselves, and they can still tell when there is, you know, a real threat and when there is not a real threat.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great examples. And you're right. It's when I put that imagination scenario, when I try that on, you know, I ask myself, you know, if I were a super psychologically healthy version of myself, I think fewer things would get to me. Fewer things would get under my skin. Fewer things would would destabilize me. I would just be like, someone's like, you know, oh, you're this way, this way, this way, whatever. I would think like, am I? Like, am I? You know, if I don't know what's an example. Let's pick something that I would never be accused of. Oh, you talk too much. Right?
Yeah.
I would be like, they're like, oh, you're always talking, you're always telling stories, you know, people don't want to listen or whatever. I would just be like, do I talk too much? I don't know. Like, it's more of like a question of fact to me. Like, or
Mhm.
that's kind of like how I screen it, versus just like accepting, like, oh no, I talk too much. like wow, like,
Yes.
you know, like it just needs to be, yeah, it just needs to, we need to come back to reality. Like maybe psychologically healthy people are more in touch with reality. Do you think that?
I think so, yeah. I think that because, the reality of it is that, most people do things in regards to their own feelings. Most of the time, it has nothing to do with you. Even if I wanted to do something nice for somebody, so I was doing it for them, I still had the thought of doing it, like in my head first, So it's like there are things that you can take personally, and there are things that like you cannot take personally. Like if you have a friend that like really really loves to give to everybody, they give you a gift, don't take it personally. They're just a giving person. Don't go thinking that like you're special to them or something, because you're not. But if you have a friend who like doesn't do anything for anybody, but they do things for you, then you can take that personally, and you could say, oh well, that's really really nice, right? Or like if you have a really really nice friend, and they're so nice to everybody, right? So one day they snap on you, and they're like, what the fuck, dude, right? So maybe you could then look at that and be like, should I take this personally? Because this is a really nice friend that I have here. This is like a really good person, and they don't get mad. So if they got mad, it must have been something that really hurt them, and it must have been something that I might have accidentally done. So I'm going to check myself real quick. Maybe then you could take that personally, right? But all of it comes with like, like the reality. That's the reality of it. Everything that I just explained. And on top of that, the reality of it is that you're not going to get along with everybody. Some people are going to be mean, some people are going to be nice. And when you what's it called, I literally just completely lost the train of my thought. I feel like this happens all the time.
It's fine.
What are we even
What would the psychologically healthy version of you do if you forgot your
Yes,
train of
yes.
thought?
So what she would do is jump right back into it. So all of these things, the reality of life take into, how mentally healthy you are, how well you can handle them, and how mentally healthy that you are, right? I feel like it comes from having a really firm foundation that you can always kind of draw back to and lead from. So that way, in order for you to be mentally healthy. I saw this thing that Kanye posted on Instagram, and it was like, fear God and the fear of everything else melts away. And I don't know if I caught the whole video, but it was like 13 seconds long, and it barely even explained it. Because everyone says that people should fear God, but like, I personally don't fear God, but like maybe I should. I don't know. I always felt like God was my homie. Like obviously like do right by him and stuff, but like, yo, homie, like I love you, like I didn't know that I had to fear the motherfucker, right? So I don't know what's going on now with that, but yeah, I kind of just went off track.
What was the quote? Can you say it again?
um it was like, if you fear God, then the fear of everything else melts away.
Huh. Yeah, that's peculiar.
Because I didn't really get that. I kind of tried putting myself into it, fearing God for a moment, and I'm like, it kind of clicks, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of God, Lately, I've been thinking of reality as my God, because reality is it's like the ultimate truth, right? It's like we think of God as like the all powerful, the all knowing, or whatever, right? It's always reality that to me turns out to be the highest authority. You know, it's like if I pour uh, if I pour water into whatever, if I mix water and some other thing, what's going to happen? Like reality will tell me, right? It's like it's not up to what I think is going to happen. If I put water and whatever vinegar or something, together, it's whatever reality is. But you mentioned reality also in uh, in what you were saying previously, and it reminded me of this one time when I was playing college hockey. After one of the games, it was a very frustrating and physical game. I was in the locker room with my teammates, and I had these like bruises on my arm from like people cross-checking me or whatever. And I was just complaining, like I was venting, to everybody. And I was like, it's that team, they're so dirty. They're like taking cheap shots the whole time. And like, look at this bruise, guys, look at this, and then the captain of our team, who's a very healthy guy, I think, very psychologically healthy and a very grounded guy. He goes, I don't have any bruises. Anybody else? Anybody else? And he asked around. He embarrassed me in front of like the whole team, right? He asked around, and nobody else raised their hand, like nobody else, right? And then he looks at me, he goes, nobody else has it, And it's like, but but the interesting thing, that in a way, it's almost like a pattern interrupt, because
Mhm.
I was stuck. I was telling my mind, not me, my mind was making up these stories about, how the other team is just a bunch of thugs and that they played dirty and they were taking, they were getting away with all of these penalties and that the referees weren't catching. And I was concocting this whole story in my mind, which then, and I can attest to this, if you play a sport and you have that sort of storyline in your mind, you will not play to your best abilities. Like
Mhm.
you're just going to be so paranoid and upset and irritated, and those negative emotions are going to keep you from playing to your fullest potential. And our captain knew this, right? And so he kind of snapped me out of this victim mindset of like, quick complaining about all the other players on the other team, targeting you and all this stuff. He kind of said that in fewer words, right?
Mhm.
Right. But I liked how he wasn't trying to respond to me with his own opinion and be like, you know what, well, I don't think so, that's not what I saw, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
He responded to me with reality. He's like, all right,
Mhm.
anybody else have these injuries? No, okay. And I think that's the right way to go. That just seems very healthy, right?
I really, really loved how that story just tied in. Did that just come up? Like, did that just pop in?
Well, from what you said, it kind of made me think of it. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that it ties in really great. And I guess I definitely agree. The mentally healthy would come back to reality. It reminds me of a situation. I was at work the other day, and I I don't know, I didn't really like understand, the importance of like a register. And so I had somebody like at the job, and as I was doing the tips and putting like getting the quarters for $1, I was handing my somebody who worked there the quarters, and I was like, all right, now get me $1. And one of the girls who's worked there like for a long time, she said to me kind of like in front of everybody, like don't let anybody near your register. That's not good, like that's not good at all. And I just, I replied back and I was like, oh, like I'm sorry. And she's like, yeah, I'm not being rude or anything. It's like, I don't let people near your register. Don't let them touch it, and like in front of everybody, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, like I get it, and at that point, I felt like that was something really mentally healthy for somebody or me to do, because it's reality. It's reality. Like, why would you get mad at somebody for trying to help you? The reality of it is that person was just trying to help you, so that way, you turn out okay. And to fall out of reality and to fall out of a good mental health would be for me to reply to her and be like, stay out of my fucking business. This is my register, and like be like, what the fuck? Like, why are you being so rude right now? That would be falling out of reality and, falling into not a mentally healthy mind. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, because the ego has a different response than logical brain. The ego is like, why are you embarrassing me in front of everybody trying to tell me how to run my register? But then logic mind is like, oh, well, what's the reason? What happens if I let someone else near my register? So I would actually point out, I think, a flaw in the communication of the other person in that situation who was talking to you. What she should have said was, it's usually best practice to not let people near your register, because if you do, then you're more likely to be off of your cash, your accounting or whatever. At the end of the day, you're going to be short or money or over money or something, right? But kind of present it in a logical cause and effect relationship, and that's the bread and butter of reality, is the cause and effect, right? It's the the mind is all about like the fear and the what ifs and this and that, and telling stories that are made up stories. And then to me, so if I say God is my reality, or reality is my God, and someone asks me, well, then how do you worship? I worship by observing cause and effect, and by experimenting on them every single day. That means when I wake up, and if I want a better day, I'm going to try something, right? If I ask myself an empowering question at the beginning of the day, or if I listen to motivational, videos on YouTube at the beginning of the day, and then go about my day, do I have a better day? I don't know. Let's find out. Reality will tell you, right? It's just constant experimentation.
Yeah, I really like that, because recently I've just been in such a good mindset, and I was having like a few bad days in a row, and I didn't know like what was up, because I'm such a good, well-rounded person, human being. And all of a sudden I just started waking up and I was like, I'm sick of this shit. And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to have a fucking good day today, and lo and behold, I had a great few days. Like, I'm talking like great, like magical, easy, swift, flowy, fun, so sometimes it just takes like a few fuck ups or a few, just like low days to really wake up and be like, I'm pissed. I'm fucking, ugh, I'm having a good day, right? So, it's your decision, And I also wanted to touch back on how you said like the way that like the kind of communication that was going on. Now, see, I completely understand that, and I agree with you. And I also just wanted to add that some people are, it's like what we talked about in last week's episode, like the 4 types of people, or what you were talking about. And I feel like there are also types of people who speak in specific ways. It's like how we were also talking, like me, like if I have a friend, and I'm like, listen, asshole, I'm fucking coming over, leave the door unlocked, right? So like that person could either choose, to be like, don't speak to me like that, or they could choose not to take it personally and be like, that's just how she is. And I know that she means it out of love. So yes, mama, come on over, doors unlocked. I love you. See you soon. Right? Because I feel like in the way that you had spoken about it, in the way of like the communication barrier, I feel like that's how I come off sometimes as well. Like sometimes I can be like a bit aggressive, or like sometimes I can say things a little differently, but I mean it all well, number one. And number two, it's just the way I communicate, right? And so it is up to that person to either take it in the wrong way or understand that this is the way I communicate. And what I understand about my coworker is that is the way she communicates, and I'm fine with that. I get it, and I know that she means it in good sense. I can tell when she's being, I can tell when she's not in a good mood and like kind of giving attitude, and I can tell when she's being genuinely kind. So I just wanted to touch base on that as well, for the the mentally healthy and learning how to respond to people who may have different ways of communicating things to you. Yeah.
Totally. And I'm going to segue this into our final thoughts for the day. I think that you made a good point there, that communication, we have to be aware of communication, right? The more we're aware of communication, the more we can be aware of our mind, because the first one impacts the second one. Like when people communicate to us, it's not just this one standard thing of like, all right, here it is, here's the word of God coming at us right now, and then if it's a piece of criticism, then we take it too seriously, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, we have to realize that when communication comes at us, a lot of times it's incomplete. A lot of times it's like there's all these different shapes. Sometimes we were given a triangle, sometimes a square, sometimes it's a circle, sometimes it's a hexagon, sometimes all these different communication styles, as diverse as there are people, as diverse as the communicators themselves. All these communications coming into us inbound are skewed, they're incomplete, they're missing. It's like, imagine getting a computer, a large segment of computer code, right? Computer coding language that has some mistakes in it, and so it doesn't run correctly. Or imagine getting something, a letter with a bunch of misspellings, like so many misspellings that you almost don't know what it's trying to say at certain points because of the misspellings. That's what it's like to verbally communicate with people, because when people speak, they do not speak finished products. Most people, very skilled communicators do. But a lot of people, what comes out of their mouth is not a finished product. It's oftentimes a defense of their own ego, right? An attempt to protect their own ego, all of these things. And that's, to me, that's reality. But we get distracted by these illusions of something. A person tries to defend their ego, and then our ego gets its guard up, because now we think that our ego thinks, oh, that's a threat to our ego. And so then we misinterpret the message they're trying to send, and blah, blah, blah. So long story short, it all starts with awareness. And yeah, I would just come back to the core question of today, which is, if you were in an acting class and you were playing, your assignment was to play a character that is very psychologically healthy, maybe your own character that's a healthier version of your own character, how would you react to that stuff? And I think the answer is very simple there.
Yeah, I really, really like that, especially the part on communication, because I feel like mentally healthy goes along with being able to properly express yourself. And obviously, humans have been so hardened throughout our lives that we don't always get across what we want to get across. So I think that, and we also don't take things how, we want to take them, because of the ego and the guards that we've built up and stuff. So in order to be mentally healthy, there are a medley of things that you can do. Don't take things personally, communicate well, keep eye contact, think positively, take things based on reality, like the reality of it. There are a bunch of things that you can do. And I think that, the best thing that you can do when communicating is to let the other person know that the way that they communicate is okay. Because touching base on an episode that we had, I don't remember which one, but I think it was a few weeks ago, your behavior allows the other person to feel comfortable with their behavior. So if you are being yourself in front of somebody else, it gives them permission to be themselves. And what I've noticed is that people who think you are a specific way and they react to that, that is how they will be every time. It's like my mom, you know, she always used to think that I was a brat and I had so much attitude. And every time I got, you know, the slightest, even if I wasn't giving attitude, if I had a change in my voice, she would then label me as somebody with an attitude, you know, and that's how I would react around her. And she never gave me any space to breathe, to change. And what I think is nice, coming from a point of view, somebody, you know, who most of the time speaks from ego, and you can tell, you can point that out and within yourself, speak to them as if they didn't have an ego. Speak to the soft child within them. And when you speak to that soft child, instead of feeding and speaking to their ego that they're speaking out of, their words will change and they will feel more comfortable communicating with you, and they will feel more comfortable with themselves in the world, which in turn, you know, the domino effect. So, yeah. And I'll end with the same question that Robert did. If you were given the role to be a mentally healthy person, you know, who would you be? What would you do? How would you act? How would you come off? And be that person today. You listening, whatever time you're listening to, if it's at 12 o'clock at night, ain't no more today. You're doing it tomorrow, okay? But if it's in the morning, you know, get on it and just do it today. Fuck it.
Yeah, and make sure to the listeners, make sure you write that answer in the comments below of what you're going to do differently, or what you would do differently. Not only is it does it help give other people ideas, but it also, by communicating it publicly, you are binding yourself to a new identity, because that's, you know, you're presenting to the world, you're telling the world how to then perceive you, and how you're going to act. And so the mind will then, yeah, act accordingly. All right. Well, thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll all see you next week in Enter the Mind.